Yes, sorry. Yes, we are meeting back Wednesday.
11 o'clock.
Yes, sir.
And that's a good class.
I appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Enjoy it.
Me too.
Rabbi, I hope I gave the right information. I may have missed a session. Are we on chapter 5?
We are on chapter 5. That's
Okay.
that's what I have. Okay, thank you everyone who's joining us on YouTube. We are here in Topeka and we are doing our study as we go through the Tanakh, and we are in the books of the Nevi'im. We are in, and it's Chris.
I'll get it.
Oh, I'm there, Mitzi.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna let somebody in. As everyone who follows us or watches these online knows, we got a bunch of people who are in the class, and we all try and get here on time when we can.
Topeka time.
Right, yeah, Topeka time. You've heard of Jewish Standard Time. This is Topeka Standard Time, which is only which is actually less late than Jewish Standard Time. So
Dr. Carl had a rule that if they didn't show up exactly on time, he locked the doors. It was certainly interesting.
all righty, so we are in Second Kings. I'm going to share the screen so that anyone following along will be able to see. And we'll start with our blessing for the study of Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. You say amen, you get full credit. We are in chapter 5 of the second book of Kings. There you go. And we are going to we're going to start with a story. So Naaman, commander of the army of the king of Aram, was an important man to his lord and high in his favor, for through him God had granted victory to Aram. But the man, though a great warrior, was a leper. Right? So people were didn't necessarily want to be that close to him, right? They're worried about contagiousness. They're worried about, right? He was afflicted in some grotesque way, we can take from that, and that caused people to keep their distance from him. Once, when the Arameans were out raiding, they carried off a young girl from the land of Israel, and she became an attendant to Naaman's wife. She said to her mistress, "I wish master could come before the prophet in Samaria. He would cure him of his leprosy." Naaman went and told his lord just what the girl from the land of Israel had said. Right? So he goes to the king and he says, "This is something that matters to me, and this girl in my house says she might have a way."
Can I have some time?
Right, exactly. I'm your best, and again, like, even though he's kind of grotesque, he gets, like, he's got a wife and he's got, he gets to talk to the king all the time because he's like the best, it's like if you had like a golden Achilles like warrior who could win every battle, but he looked weird, you'd still let him you'd let him hang out because, you're protected. You're good. And the king of Aram said, "Go to the king of Israel, and I will send along a letter." Right? So he's like, "Okay, I'm good with this. Let's make this happen." Right? You're my guy, so we'll make this happen. I'll send you with a letter and some stuff, not just some stuff, a lot of stuff, as a gift for this prophet, and a lot of clothes. People gave clothes to, again, prophets. There wasn't a system of patronage necessarily. We heard about the Shunammite woman recently and how she took care of Elisha, but this is really, that's like for the top prophet, right? Like, what about all these other guys walking around, right? Like, so clothes would often be because, you had to make clothes. You couldn't go to Walmart. There wasn't a Walmart. So you had to because you had somebody had to make it for you. It was very expensive. So sometimes, in addition to gold and silver, they're going to give clothes. So he set out, taking with him 10 talents of silver, 6,000 shekels of gold, and 10 changes of clothing. He brought the letter to the king of Israel. It read, "Now when this letter reaches you, know that I have sent my courtier Naaman to you, that you may cure him of his leprosy. Right? And the commentator wants to remind us that at this time, the Arameans were doing a lot of incursions into the northern kingdom. And so the king was kind of like, this was like a letter that's like, hey, I expect that you're going to want to help me out, so I won't be doing any more to you. You know, it's like a mafia kind of like an offer he can't refuse.
Yeah.
Is kind of the implication by the letter. He's like, that's what so he's like, here's a letter from the king. When the king of Israel read the letter, he rent his clothes and cried, am I God to deal death or give life, that this fellow writes to me to cure a man of leprosy? Just see for yourselves that he is seeking a pretext against me. Right? Because he's like, first of all, maybe the prophet can or can't do whatever, but you took some, right? He's like, what a silly thing you're saying to me. Oh, some girl that you seized from some town on my border said that the prophet could cure leprosy, and now you threaten me if I can't cure leprosy? He's like, nobody cures. The implication, of course, is that that's such an unreasonably difficult ask that to ask it is really just so that when he fails to do so, he has additional pretext to, now I'm going to attack Israel even more because they failed to cure my best friend.
You don't trust people, you find a negative reason for everything.
Well, I mean, yes, and probably, but also in this case, first of all, the Arameans are attacking Israel, are currently raiding. So and like this girl that brought up the idea was only with them because she was taken as a slave by the Arameans during a raid. So, it's like we can't pretend there's nothing happening, right? That would be disingenuous. And we believe Israel today and then right to defend itself. So, so this is no. I'm just saying. So what I'm saying is just that. He's rightfully, I would say, the king is a little distrustful, but has good reason to be distrustful of this particular person, especially with the great thing he asked. Again, remember, the girl said the prophet could cure it. Naaman goes and says, I want to go see the prophet. The king of Aram says, take this letter to the king. I'm going to make him personally responsible. So the king of Aram, if you notice that chain, has altered it slightly from... Why is the king of Israel involved at all? Except if they need some kind of letter of protection of some, they're trying to see the prophet. The king can't cure anything, right? So he can only give him access to the prophet, who usually controls access to himself, not anyway. Okay, so enter Elisha, our prophet du jour. When Elisha, the agent of God, Isha Elohim, right? And I don't like how they do this because they're like Elisha, the agent of God. But when it says in the Hebrew, Elisha, Isha Elohim, it really should say in capital V, capital prophet, capital, right? It's like what this means, especially, I would say, is that Isha Elohim is more like a special title for the top prophet of the dead, right? So that is the man of God among all the right. This is so that's I would warrant to say that's what, because Elijah also had that when he was around, and it seems like this is the title of the one who holds this special mantle. Right. That this is the prophet Elisha. Right, and that's what it means, right? Isha Elohim essentially, right, means the godly man, essentially, right? I don't mind the agent of God, but when they say Elisha, the agent of God, it sounds like it could be any and in a way, I guess it could be, but it's so specific. I want to see the title before the name. I don't know why.
It is expressed better in Hebrew than it's.
Yes, right. I think so. Anyway, so when the prophet Elisha heard that the king of Israel had rent his clothes, he sent a message to the king. Why have you rent your clothes? Let him come to me, and he will learn that there is a prophet in Israel. Remember what we learned about Elisha. Guy loves the theatricality of this role. He's really into it. And he's like, why are you upset? He came to see me to cure his leprosy. I'll do it. You send him to me, I'll prove that I can do it. And then then he doesn't get the pretext. Why are you being melodramatic? So Naaman came with his horses and chariots and halted at the door of Elisha's house. So it's just like it's a funny scene because Elisha doesn't have like it's not like a big manor. Imagine like Downton Abbey and like everyone's pulling up with big carrot. I don't know, just like the carriages and people, attendants and servants and meanwhile it's like pulling up to like, but then on the other, it's not a big house, it's a shack or something. It's just like a little strange, right? So he comes and all that, and he stops at Elisha's house. And Elisha sent a messenger to say to him, go and bathe 7 times in the Jordan, and your flesh shall be restored, and you shall be pure.
Wow.
Yeah. Before we go on, we can talk about this line because I thought, especially for the medical professionals in the room, it might. Yeah, what's up? Let's talk.
What I'm thinking is it's in the Jordan, and hope this is okay, Rabbi, where Jesus is baptized, and baptism becomes the replacement of we purified ourselves, but we didn't cure ourselves of sin. Baptism becomes a cure of sin. It removes sin. But
well, actually, that's taken from us too.
That's
Tevilah, immersion in the mikvah, is where the idea of baptism comes from. And actually, you can do tevilah like a mikvah. Any flowing body of water is a mikvah naturally. So a river was, which I'm getting to. All the fact the Christian Bible having Jesus being baptized in the Jordan is not a random choice by the author of that text. It is because of all the instances in the books of the prophets where people immerse themselves in the Jordan.
You
like this.
You have sensitized me to that fact. I hadn't realized.
Yes, I don't mean it in a negative way, but
and I'm saying, gosh, here's another one.
Yes. So I don't mean it in a negative way, but a lot of the stories, especially from these books, are, I don't know how to say it, transposed.
Yes.
In the stories of, by the way, this will be repeated, unfortunately, in another form, because stories from both these books and the Christian Bible will then be, we can say, transposed and reimagined with different characters, but essentially the same stories in the Quran, which also again invents new stories. Like it's not that, and the Christian Bible has new story, and not every story is a repeat of a story from our books, but a lot of them are made to rhyme because if you're trying to say our tradition is built on top of this tradition, there has to be a through line. It has to be, you have to be able to say, I see how I could say that. If I know that the Messiah has to be a descendant of King David, I know how I have to then get through these books and then write it so that, I don't know how to say, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but so that my Messiah is the descendant of King David. You know what I mean? If the other books are already written, you just write the books to tell the story as it needs to be told.
Ideas of reference.
Well, and all the authors, the New Testament were Jews. And they were
they?
tradition. Oh yeah.
Okay. I don't know. I'm not the guy to ask. I don't know. I've never read in their fullness the books of the Christian Bible. Except for the books we've got. Those I've done in the original. I guess so. So I guess I've done at least half. Is it half? I don't, now I'm on the internet being like, is the books of the Christian Bible like, is it like half the newer stuff and half the, or is there more in the, or is it more in the new? I don't
There's an
know.
awful lot of healing that goes on, which Elijah is doing.
I was just wondering about the number of books. I'm
I
sure the
think there are
content is
more in the
rich.
New Testament.
Oh, are there? I
I think
have
so.
no idea how many books they have. I don't.
Well,
We have.
I know there are a
27.
number of gospels, and then there are
most of
other
the-
books like
most of the
Romans and
book-
Acts.
Most of the gospel stories are by Saint Paul, because after you do the 4 evangelists and Acts, Saint Paul
Oh.
takes over.
Fair enough. Again, you're teaching me something I don't know anything about. I don't know anything about it.
Incidentally, he was a Jew.
Fair enough. Good for him. He did he I don't know how to say this. I'm on the internet, but I'll say it. He did a number on us, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure how proud I am of that. But did a real number on us.
At
But
one point, there were Christians in Jerusalem who essentially said we're Jews.
I understand. At the very beginning, I understand. Early Christianity, I understand there was a lot of crossover because most of the early Christians were converts from Judaism, or some of them still saw themselves as Jew. Right? It's a whole. Well, there were a lot of Jewish renegades at the time. There were many factions. It wasn't just there are the Jews, and then there was this new. Right. There were many factions of the Jews in the time of the Second Temple. And unfortunately, I'll say unfortunately, because it would have meant more Jews probably had some of them survived. Most of them died out in the 50 or so years after the destruction of Jewish sovereignty, after 70 CE and the destruction of the temple. By about 132, most of them were gone, except for the rabbinic Jews. And the Christians and those who had become Christians. Those were really the only 2 Jewish sects that were left. And obviously the ones that became Christians very quickly decided that their ethnicity was no longer relevant to their practice of their new religion, and therefore they clearly cut themselves off. They were like, we're not identified specifically as Jews anymore. So right. The whole thing in like 200 years, the Jewish population suffered a massive, change, cratering in a way, because of people leaving or being killed, and the destruction of Jewish sovereignty in the land by the Romans. The Romans killed a lot of people. It was just, it's kind of surprising that we still made it, but we did anyway. Okay, so Elisha sent this message, but that's not what I thought you were going to bring up, was the Jordan. I was thinking here, Elisha sent a messenger to him. Elisha just said to the king, I can do this.
Yeah.
And the guy shows up to his house. He's like, I'm not going to see him, though. He's a leper. Are you kidding? I might get leprosy. He's like, Elisha's like, I'm going to send this guy to him. And it's like the doctor being like, like somebody in the middle of the night and being like, I'm not going. Assistant person, take this, fill the prescription, bring it, like in the old days if they would have made house calls. It's like, I'm gonna have an assistant and they're gonna bring it to you because it's like 4 a.m. and I'm not interested.
Here's my nurse practitioner.
Right, something like that. Right, they'll see you and they'll take care of it. I'm too busy. Which seems upsetting because this is like a big deal to the king of this other, right? That's not such a weird thing to think. Okay, somebody called me in the middle of the night. I had my assistant go instead of me. Not so bad. But if you're the doctor to the president and the president sends you to another president and says, you got to heal this guy, it's the most important thing. And you're like, okay, I'll have my nurse send over the stuff. And it's like, what the hell, right?
You go there.
Right, exactly. You just got the call. They're going to put you on a plane. You go, right? You're not like, I'll send my assistant. It'll be fine. They'll take care of it, I'm sure. That conveys a lack of
Personal care.
right, a care for the you think it's kind of like, to use a sports analogy, which I adore. Winners want the ball. You want the doctor to want the ball in that situation, to want to be there in person to make sure, because nobody can get it right but them. The prophet in this case, you want them to be there and being like, I'm the prophet, I'm Isha Elohim. Yeah. I gotta be there. And he's like, leprosy. You go. Take him to the Jordan, bathe him 7 times.
I was pulling night call. One lady called and said, I don't know what to tell you, doctor, but I'm so constipated. Well, I knew this was her first baby. and decided I'll meet you at the dispensary. I got up and there the baby was on the perineum.
There you go.
And I wouldn't have been done well if the nurse had done. I had by that time delivered 100 babies.
There you go.
And I knew how to get her through it. And she didn't whimper. I cleaned the baby up, handed the baby to her, and her comment was, "He's beautiful." And I made a note, she's going to be a good mother. And she was, because I also did the well baby stuff.
Speaking of babies, the only way person that wants to change as a baby is a wet diaper.
But what else could we take from
Well,
from the prophet sending a messenger out to him? What else could we take from this? We want the guy to want the ball. That's what we want. That's what Naaman wants. Well, what's another way to look at it?
I hope I'm wrong. He's not Jewish. I don't have to go.
Wait, what? Oh, no. I guess you could see it. Yeah. I didn't even consider that. I didn't even consider that. No, I just want to throw out there very quickly. No, that's not it. There's no consideration. He volunteered to help him knowing he was an Aramean.
That's true.
It's not that. It really is just he's afraid of getting, he's a, like a good Jewish stereotype, he's a bit of a hypochondriac, and he's a little afraid of getting
There's a lot of
sick
about leprosy in the Tanakh.
I'm just saying he's a little afraid of getting sick, and therefore also becoming probably unclean from being. I mean, he's not a priest in that way, but he does do sacrifices and he does do things. What else could it be though? He sent a messenger and said, "Go bathe 7 times," and we've seen things like this before. That this is a way that a prophet might instruct someone that would heal them.
Exactly.
Because God is a natural God.
Yeah.
God doesn't need spectacle. Now, God can do spectacles. Elijah fought the prophets of Baal. I would say that was a spectacle.
Yeah.
Not that God split the sea. That was a spectacle, right? I'm not saying God can't, God forbid, do spectacles. And Elisha loves spectacles. So you expect that there would be some kind of.
But this would be a spectacle. Go bathe 7 times and be clean. And
if it like sloughed off him or something and he looked like a beautiful man afterwards, right? That would be like, oh man, isn't that right? You would think. Yeah. But that's not what he expects. Why? Because all the prophets of all the religions of the ancient Near East at this time, think of, anyone watch The Prince of Egypt? It's a great time for this because it's Passover now. Mm-hmm. If you watch the movie The Prince of Egypt, and if you haven't, I know it's a cartoon, but please do. It's an amazing, amazing DreamWorks retelling of the Passover story. It's not 100% accurate to Midrash and Tanakh, all that, but it is very good. And you'll notice in it that the priests of the Egyptians are basically just magicians. They do tricks. They do sleight of hand. They can hide snakes up there and go whoosh, it's there now. Whatever they do.
One of the charges levels against Jesus was he was a magician.
Well, so here's the thing: the Israelites have encountered many magicians as the priests and whatnot of other religions. And so magic tricks are not foreign to us. I don't know that's I don't know anything about the quote you're talking. I don't know anything about it, but I just separately I know magic is not something totally out of bounds that the Tanakh might consider. Not that it has binding effect, because only God's rules for the world are truly binding, but that some of it in some level exists. Not that it might be magic in some supernatural way, but that sleight of hand exists in such a way that causes one to believe magic is the same way a magician today can make you believe that they're really levitating or something when they're, the same kind of thing. It's magic. But that's what this guy wants, because that's what his culture does, right? He wants to see the guy, and he wants him to do something special, right? We'll go to verse 11 now. But Naaman was angered and walked away. I thought, he said, he, the prophet, would surely come out to me and would stand and invoke the eternal his God by name, and would wave his hand toward the spot and cure the afflicted part, or the affected part. Right? He expected a miracle that with impressive hand gestures, and and just boom, sim salaman. I don't know, whatever the old abracadabra, and then boom,
That brings up
clean.
the metaphysical question is, what is a miracle?
Well, that's right. So, and he didn't, and he's like, instead, I got bathing. I was told to bathe, as if bathing was. He's like, he thinks I don't bathe. Right? He's like, and this is, he says now, he says in verse 12, he says, are not, and this is where the not anti-Semitism, but whatever the version of it in this time period would be. He's like, it may be just nationalism, but in some way. But he says, are not the Amana and the Pharpar, the rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel? I could bathe in them and be pure. And he stalked off in a rage. Right? So he's like, we have better water than the Jews. Sorry, the Israelites. Why don't I could have just bathed at home and be cured? But of course, stupid. But that's what it, so he's like, if it's just bathing that I gotta do, then I can bathe at home. But his servants came forward and spoke to him. Sir, they said, I love it. It's Avi, my father, but it's probably like master in their culture. Like their culture, probably their slaves called their overlords my father. I don't know. We're translating it to sir. They said, if the prophet told you to do something difficult, would you not do it? How much more? I love they use rabbinic. This is my rabbinic. How much more so that we love so much from interpretation. The alachat kama v'kama. If you would do this, how much more so should you do it if this other thing is true? So if they ask you to do something difficult, you would do it. How much more so would you do if he has only said to you, bathe and be pure? So he didn't give you a difficult task, Baruch Hashem. His very pious rabbinic, like Aramean slave people say. They're like, he asked you to do something easy, so just do it. Right? Why don't you at least try it? They're saying, like, if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. But if it works, you came all this way. I love it. Great logic, great Jewish logic for the Aramean slaves that told him what to do. Okay, so he went down. So he did. It works on him. They nebish him into right. They nudge him until he does it. So he went down and immersed himself in the Jordan 7 times, as the prophet had bidden, and his flesh became like a little child's, soft, and he was pure. Returning with his entire retinue to the prophet, he stood before Elisha and exclaimed, now I know that there is no God in the whole world except in Israel. So please accept a gift from your servant. But Elisha replied, Chai Adonai, as Asher Amadti, which is, as I would translate this as, by the living God, by whom I stand, or who establishes me before him, lifanav, I will not accept anything. He pressed him to accept, but he refused. Yeah, and that this expression of this oath, this formula, is the same one that Elijah had used in the last book we had saw. So that's this again, just like I said this thing before about the Christian Bible and Jesus and those stories. They have to, within this book, they have to do the same thing. Right. To establish Elisha as the successor of Elijah, they have to have him use words Elijah used, which creates this impression that which it probably was, that this is an oath formula, that this is something prophets say,
Sure.
right? That this is one of those things, and they say, right? I don't aggrandize myself. I don't get to have a big house. The prophet. Priests get to live in some nice places sometimes, but it's actually really contingent on where they're assigned. But prophets are not supposed to be rich, powerful men in that way. Not powerful in that way. They're obviously, because they're not powerful on their own, right? Everything they do, they're a conduit for God. Their words, their power, all of it. Now, because they're a person, and this is Ish Elohim, like they can, if the Shunammite woman's kid dies and the prophet she's been really good to him, he needs there to be intercession, God will sometimes agree to intercede on the prophet's behalf. Mostly just to reassert that the prophet is powerful because God is powerful. So that people don't start saying, oh, the prophet couldn't save this kid. Oh, the prophet couldn't do this. Even though you'd think he could with God's power if God was really all that, which we know God is. So, there's a little bit of, God can't let down the side, so to say, because then it'll look bad for God. So there's some play there, but for the most part, it's God's power. So when here he's like, here, I've got all these beautiful gifts, all this gold and silver and clothes and all this stuff. And he's like, that I'm not allowed so much.
Well,
That may be part of why he didn't take him to the river himself too. He's saying your cure is not through me, it's through God.
through God.
Well, yes. I mean, in some way it is. Yes, I agree with you. I'm not going to qualify that. I do agree that a lesson that should be taken from that is that the prophet, God decided to heal the guy. So it didn't matter by which effect it happened.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's the ikar of this.
Right.
When God decided to heal the guy, he could have been healed by a gesture, he could have been healed by bathing, he could have been healed by a rock hitting him from the sky but not killing him, and then he doesn't have any. It could have been anything. God could have decided, and it could have been anything. It happened to be this. But yes, you're right. It doesn't come through the prophet specifically. It does. It's God using the prophet as a conduit to express
As
God's
you
power.
taught us with Kohelet,
Yeah.
the prophet is not needing to profit because he's satisfied with the way things are.
Well, and I think less than that, because I don't think it's quite so I don't think it's quite so philosophical in this sense. I think I've mentioned before that I think from my reading of these books, I think that the prophets are kind of changed by their experience of being prophets, and it makes them humans of a different kind in a way. Their encounter with the divine impacts their free will in a way that makes them different from us in a way. Not better. Again, Judaism really values that things can be different without being, I don't mean separate but equal or something, but I mean things can be different without being better. And the differentiation is okay. And so, that's all I really need to say about that, I think. But yeah, I don't think, okay. So Naaman is not pleased. He's like, okay, no. He said, remember though, Elisha would take the apartment to live in. He would take some things, right? And to be fair, today you'll find, Jewish leaders, rabbis, for instance, we accept parnasa, we accept a salary, sometimes a parsonage, a home to live in, but rabbis are not ethically encouraged to take, for individuals to give them large sums of money to, that's, it's not quite the same as prophets, but,
Boxes of cigars and champagne. Like Bibi.
Bibi, yeah, no, I know, yeah. Bibi does like a cigar.
Healing gives you some freedom to do some good.
Well, that's very different. That's not for me. None of that's not for me. The rabbi's discretionary fund I can never use on myself.
Well, I understand that, but you can use it to help others.
Yeah, but that's How does that that's not, it's not self-aggrandizement.
That's
It
right.
doesn't
I
contribute
agree.
to it. Yeah. Right. Right. Sure. The rabbi helps people in the community, but I'm just saying um, it's not like you've got some big, you know, rabbis aren't getting wealthy off of being rabbis, is what I mean. The same way a prophet isn't getting wealthy off of being a prophet. Um, because we don't mind if someone has enough or even more than enough, but we're like, yeah, don't like hoard if you can avoid it. Um, okay. So and Naaman said, then at least let your servant be given 2 mule loads of earth, for your servant will never again offer up burnt offering or sacrifice to any god except Adonai, Yud He Vav He.
Mm.
Right? So here he's saying, I accept upon myself to worship only the God of Israel, and I want pure earth upon which earth from here. Right? This is a big change in just like a day, right?
The waters from the earth.
Yesterday he said, the waters here suck. I want to go to the waters
Yeah.
of Damascus. And now he's saying,
I
I believe so immensely that there is only the God of Israel, that I want to bring your earth back to Damascus so that I can worship God on holy soil. Whew, that's a change. Naaman also added, but may God pardon your servant for this. When my master enters the temple of Rimmon, like pomegranate or grenade. Sorry, yeah, because when Israelis they needed a word for grenade and they didn't have one, and because pomegranate has like a bunch of seeds inside it, like a grenade has a bunch of ball bearings and stuff inside it that explode out when you. So they're like it's the same thing. So Rimon is also a grenade and also a
Interesting.
pomegranate. Anyway, just an explosive pomegranate. So I must bow low in the temple of Rimmon. When I bow low in the temple of Rimmon, may God pardon your servant in this thing, in this matter. Right? Because what's he saying? He's like, look, I'm still like, I'm gonna be, this is like people talk about Ruth all the time as the first Jewish convert. This is earlier than that.
Yeah, that's right. This is
Right?
before.
No, it's not. No, it's not. It's after. But the book comes before it, but it is after. But here's another. I don't mean I'm not really trying to challenge Ruth. Obviously, I'm joking about that. But what I'm trying to say is that here's another instance of a character who is with fervor declaring new allegiance in a way. And it's like if Ruth is a conversion, then this is a conversion, essentially, I would say. Although he has an interfaith family. So he's having some trouble here. Because he's like, when I go with my boss to the temple, I gotta do the thing. Even though by doing so, I know I'm breaking your rules, because Jews don't bow to other to idols. But he's like, I will bow to this idol because my boss is the king, and we got to go to, like, he's the top general. Like in many, he's like, we have these big formal occasions where we have to go and do stuff, and if I'm the only one not bowing, people are gonna kill. Like, it's gonna be bad for me. And so Elisha said, okay. By the way, he's just like the whole thing. It's like, I imagine he's just like, okay, you want the land? Fine. You can take some wheelbarrows of dirt. You want to say you want to say you're in and you're just bowing for fun. Okay. Which is great. Okay. So then, when he had gone some distance, so Naaman left and went some distance from Elisha. And Gehazi, the attendant of Elisha, the prophet, thought, my master has let that Aramean Naaman off without accepting what he brought. Uh-oh. Right. Right. As God lives, which is a weird thing for him to swear for this
Yeah, he's not the prophet.
this thing, but yeah, he's like, Chai Adonai, as God lives, I will run after him and get something from him. So Gehazi hurried after Naaman. When Naaman saw someone running after him, he alighted from his chariot to meet him and said, is all well? Right? It must have been a reason someone was chasing after him. All is well, Gehazi replied. My master has sent me to say, 2 youths, disciples of the prophets, have just come to me from the hill country of Ephraim. Please give them a talent of silver and 2 changes of clothing. This is terrible. He's making up a charitable purpose. No good. And he invented this story in the name of the prophet. The prophet can't make stuff up. And of course, the prophet doesn't have any idea that this guy is doing this. Naaman said, please take 2 talents, right? He brought way more than that. He brought 6 talents of silver. So he said, instead of 1, why don't you have 2, right? Because he was going, he's now a true believer, and he got more than he could have ever hoped for. He's more than happy to give. So he urged them, and he wrapped the 2 talents of silver in 2 bags and gave them along with 2 changes of clothes to take to 2 of his servants who carried them ahead of him. I like that the commentator says, the guy asked him to take 2 instead of 1, and Gehazi presumably did not resist for long.
No, probably not.
No, probably not. Probably not. When Gehazi arrived at the citadel, he took the things from them and deposited them in the house. Then he dismissed the men, and they went on their way. The Naaman's men who carried the stuff, and they left. He entered and stood before his master, and Elisha said to him, where have you been, Gehazi? Gehazi replied, your servant has not gone anywhere. Then Elisha said to him, did not my spirit, or my heart in this case, Libi, go along when the man got down from his chariot to meet you? In other words, I was there. I was watching. I know what you did. Is this a time to take money in order to buy clothing and olive groves and vineyards, sheep and oxen and male and female slaves? Right? Can we use this money that you have gained in such a manner for purchases? Surely the leprosy of Naaman shall cling to you and your descendants forever. And as Gehazi left his presence, he was snow white with leprosy.
Be careful of what you ask for.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's that. I mean, I think it's a simple lesson, but I don't think that's the one.
No.
This guy's a cheat and a
He lied and got-
He lied in the name of the prophet. Like he's lucky to not be dead.
Yeah.
He should really, by all the rules, be dead, but he did a lot of good for Elisha, and maybe this is the mercy. It's just that he gets the leprosy now, but it'll be on him and his descendants. Shame that Gehazi is such a shameful guy. He shouldn't have done what he did. Bad thing. Don't make up charities and steal from people. It's bad. Don't take advantage of their piety to rob them. Also really bad. Super bad. Very bad. Again, he really should have been, if this were the harsh God of justice we keep being told is here, he'd have been dead.
No, they
But-
walked out of the door.
right. But again, for some reason, it's mitigated to the more theatrical in a way. And speaking of Elisha being like leprosy, I actually took it off him and hid it, and now it's on you.
Yeah.
Right? It's like magic. No. Okay.
I hear a kind of subplot too.
Mhm.
You would think to yourself, how could this happen to an attendant of a prophet? He should be somehow touched by the prophet's holiness, at least made wiser by it. And I think the message is even a man who knows better can do wrong.
Well, I mean, I think that's, if that's the lesson you take from it, I think that's a good lesson. I would argue perhaps that we shouldn't expect that the attendant of the prophet would indeed be like that. Assumption is an assumption based in the idea that there's, some holiness that like transfers off of a holy person, but that's not really the case. A prophet is called to the specific mission and given the Ruach Elohim by God. That's a specific thing for a specific prophet, right?
Sure.
So God never claims that the prophet's servants will be good, like they should be, because everyone should be, but there's nothing about them that would prevent them from being bad people.
Yeah.
And you should, I mean, look, Judaism teaches in how its laws are structured that we shouldn't just rely on people to do good, because people often choose to do bad, which is the thing they're allowed to do because of free will. And because of that, we need rules that will make sure people don't go astray as long as they follow them. And so, you could assume Gehazi would be good. The guy, obviously, Naaman, believed Gehazi instantly, never questioned him. Didn't ask for a note from the prophet or these guys. Said, take twice the silver. So, he assumed that the guy was on the up and up, but really he was just trying. He's like, hey, Gehazi, I'm not defending him. Gehazi is the guy he's the squire, right? He's the guy who's got to make the food, keep the camel, horse, whatever situation they've got going, make the camp, take care of the prophet. He's got to do all this stuff every day for the prophet, including going to buy the food, and when times are lean, they both eat less. They both have less clothing. They both, right? Because the prophet's not living a life he's got a small house and he's mostly traveling around the land all the time. And so this guy's like, hey, we could use these clothes and this money so that we don't have to live such a tough, rough life every day, right? So from Gehazi's justification standpoint, he's justifying his actions by saying, I am serving God and the prophet by making sure, because the prophet's too holy to think about this kind of mundane stuff. But I'm the guy who's got to go shop for the food every day in the market so that he can eat and then cook it for him and clean his stuff and do right. So Gehazi so Gehazi, good intentions even could lead one to this, which is a terrible act. He lies, he steals, it's all bad. But the justification probably came from a place we would ordinarily call good, or at least justified, which is he justifies it to himself because he's got all these responsibilities, and 2 talents of silver would be like they'd never have to, they wouldn't have to struggle for years. And sometimes they do have to struggle. Sometimes they have to sleep outside. Sometimes they have to, Anyway. Okay. Now we're going to move to another story about Elisha. The disciples of the prophet said to Elisha, chapter 6, verse 1, see, the place where we live under your direction is too cramped for us. Right? So, as Elisha's theatricality made its way around, some, the prophets would get followers and people who would, want to learn from them and, uh, devote themselves more to God and that kind of thing, maybe just for a little bit. But here he's like, well, you've got so many students that it's too cramped. Let us go to the Jordan and let us each get a log there and build quarters there for ourselves to live in. Right? And Elisha, right, and right. So he's like, we're going to build a house for you, and we'll build a house for all of us, and we'll build like a little, yeshiva type situation, yeshiva town. And Elisha said, hey, that sounds great. Let's do that. Go for it. Do it. He says, go, right? He says, lechu. So they should go and do that. Then one of them said, will you please come along with your servants? So we want to we're building a school for you to teach in, and we want you to, and he said, and Elisha says, okay, I'll go. Elech, I'll go now, right? Before he said lechu, you go. They'll go. And then he says, now, Elech, I'll go. He accompanied them. So they went to the Jordan and cut timber. As one of them was felling a trunk, the iron axe head fell into the water. And he cried aloud, alas, master, it was a borrowed one. Right? This is a problem because he borrowed this axe head and now he can't return it to its owner. Where did it fall? Asked the agent of God. He showed him the spot, and he cut off a stick and threw it in, and he made the axe head float. Magic, right? It's really, it's just, he threw the stick in the water, and the axe head came to the top. Pick it up, he said. So the guy reached out and took it. That is the end of that story, by the way. That is the whole story. Now we're gonna move on to another part of the story. We're dealing with the king of Aram, obviously sometime after this previous story we had, because the king of Aram was waging war now against Israel. Apparently, healing his guy wasn't enough. Maybe this is still raids though, not full scale war. Just still going with the raids. He took counsel with his officers and said, I will encamp in such and such a place. I'm going to camp over here. But the prophet sent word to the king of Israel, take care not to pass through that place, for the Arameans are encamped there, waiting to ambush you. So the king of Israel sent word to the place of which the prophet had told him. Time and again he alerted such a place and took precautions there. What's happening? The prophet Elisha has moved 2,500 years into the future, and he has created the first AWACS platform in his own brain, right? Except instead of AWACS, instead of airborne, it's PWACS, prophetic early warning and alert and control system. And he just says, hey, the Arameans, they're over there. Don't go over there unless you're ready to attack them. And the king goes, great, we'll move over here, and then they'll go over here and we'll hit them. And so they've got prescient knowledge of where the Aramean force is in a way that armies wouldn't have for another 2,500 years when they had satellites. A couple of armies today have the ability to do this. 2,500 years ago, only Elisha. Anyway, so this occurred not once, but twice. Not twice, but many times. So time and again is what the translation.
Don't forget Starlink.
Starlink is helpful too, but not quite as good as military assets. Soon it might be though. Anyway, so greatly agitated about this matter, as you would expect, because it's crazy that this is happening. The king of Aram summoned his officers and said to them, tell me, who of us is on the side of the king of Israel? Right? He is assuming someone from his camp must literally be sending a note saying, we are here. Because how else could they possibly know where they are at all times? No one, my lord king, said one of the officers. Elisha, that prophet in Israel, tells the king of Israel the very words you speak in your bedroom. Right? And that's a euphemism for your
Sure.
he knows everything you think, and so he knows where you are, and he knows and he just tells the king where you are. And so of course the king decides we're gonna have the first ever political assassination in wartime. Nowadays it happens a lot, I guess. Back in the day, didn't
Which is
happen
a
that
kid
often. Right. Well, yeah. Well, yeah, right. Maybe he won't kill him, but he'll hold him so he can't inform the king of Israel. He says, "Go find out where he is," the king of Aram says, "so that I can have him seized." It was reported to him that Elisha was in Dothan. By the way, this is where Dothan, Alabama gets its name, just in case you're a fan of city names that get their names from the Bible. But Elisha was not in Dothan, Alabama. He was in Dothan in Israel. So the king of Aram sent horses and chariots there and a strong force. They arrived at night and encircled the town, the city, really. I don't know why it says town. When the attendant of the prophet rose early and went outside, he saw a force with horses and chariots surrounding the town. "Alas, master, what shall we do?" his servant asked him. "Have no fear," Elisha replied. "There are more on our side than on theirs." Then Elisha prayed, "Eternal One, open his eyes and let him see." And God opened the servant's eyes, and he saw the hills all around Elisha, covered with horses and chariots of fire. That's crazy. Right? Last time we saw a chariot of fire, we saw one, by the way.
Yeah, but now we have a whole bunch.
Right, exactly. Last time we had that, we were supposed to be anyway.
That was Elijah's ascent, right?
Yeah.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
That was the Merkava of Elijah going up to heaven. The Arameans came down against excuse me, came down against him, and Elisha prayed to God, "Please strike this people with a blinding light." Sorry, I thought I heard someone at the door. And they were struck with a blinding light as Elisha had asked, right? So he rendered their army dizzy and confused and made it unable for them to see. Elisha said to them, so this is where, if you wonder where George Lucas got the Jedi mind trick, Elisha said to them, "This is not the road you are looking for." He says, "This is not the road, and that is not the town. Follow me, and I will lead you to the man you want." And Elisha, who they were looking for, led the Aramean army to Samaria. Right? So he Jedi mind tricked the whole Aramean army and took them to Samaria. And when they entered Samaria, Elisha said, "O Eternal One, open the eyes of these men so that they may see." God opened their eyes, and they saw that they were inside Samaria. When the king of Israel saw them, he said to Elisha, and this is interesting because he calls him Avi, right? He says, "Shall I strike them down, my father?" "No, do not," Elisha replied. "Did you take them captive with your sword and bow that you would strike them down? Rather, set food and drink before them, and let them eat and drink and return to their master." Right? Elisha's like, hold on. Did you win something? Are these your captives? I brought them here. You're going to feed them. You're going to be nice to them, like they're your guests, and then you're going to let them go. And this king of Israel is obviously very good to Elisha because, again, he called him Avi, which is he's being very respectful and obedient to the prophet, which, again, rare in Israel for there to be such a king that would be obedient to the right. In Judah, we've seen a little bit of kings that care about respecting the prophets. Less so in Israel. But this king is good, or at least in this aspect, is doing what he says. So the king prepared a lavish feast for them, and after they'd eaten and drunk, he let them go. and they returned to their master. And the Aramean bands stopped invading the land of Israel.
Wonderful story. Did it really happen?
For the time being, the commentator says, it doesn't mean forever, but for a little bit, the people, the soldiers were so afraid of Elisha. Again, Elisha, like what he's doing is, again, Elisha's theatricality cannot be matched. What does he do? He takes them into the center of the fortified capital of Israel, defenseless, without they're just standing there, they don't have their weapons, they're just standing there, oh. And then he goes, eyes open. And they're like, oh no, damn it, how are we here? Right? We're gonna die. We're in the, like, they're all around us with weapons. We're gonna die. And he says, no, you're not. I just brought you here. Why? To show you what I can do, what God can do.
It would make a wonderful movie. Has anybody done this?
The whole Bible would make a great.
Yeah, that's right. But this
great
is
makes a great. Yes, Elisha and Elijah are very theatrical.
Yeah.
I don't know what he's real. Nobody's made an Elisha movie, and I don't think anyone's even made an Elijah movie.
Yeah.
But an Elijah-Elisha movie would be great. I would watch the Elijah movie, and then I would watch the sequel, which would be the Elisha movie.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Unfortunately, I think if it was a trilogy, it would have to end as the Jeremiah movie, and that would be
that's
we'd time skip and do Jeremiah, and then that would be the end for prophets for a while. Thank you. Beidish, the allergies. April is really killing me. I hate the allergy season of April. Yeah, a lot of seasonal. Oh man, in the spring I'm dying. Anyway, I'm trying, but I'm not sick. I'm saying I'm not gonna. This isn't like I'm not like gonna get you like it's not a virus or something. Right? I don't have leprosy. I don't have a virus. I'm not gonna get you sick.
It's not so much in DC.
What?
Not so much in DC. Probably the allergies.
Oh, no, I had less in DC when I was, but I was also when I was growing up, I had less. I didn't really start to have them a bunch till I was in Texas. The cedar and stuff there was really a lot. Anyway, so they're like, okay, we're good, we're done. But it doesn't last. We keep fighting with Aram. We're still fighting. We're still kind of fighting with Aram today. Right, the Syrians. So sometime later, King Ben-Hadad of Aram mustered his entire army and marched upon Samaria and besieged it. So the king was unable to defend their land. There was a great famine in Samaria, and the siege continued until a donkey's head sold for 80 shekels of silver and a quarter of a cob of dove's dung for 5 shekels. Which the head of a donkey, it's in normal times it's worth very little because it's not kosher and it has inferior meat. And the dove's dung, which I guess was a fuel source, but probably a small and bad one, that's definitely a lot for that. Once, when the king of Israel was walking on the city wall, a woman cried out to him, "Help me, your majesty." "Don't ask me," he replied. "Let God help you. Where could I get help for you? From the threshing floor or from the wine press?" Saying all these things are empty, by the way. We don't have anybody working the threshing floors. We don't have anybody working the wine presses. If God doesn't help you, how could I? It's a very sad thing for a king to say to some random lady. "But what troubles you?" the king asked her. He's like, "But you can go ahead and tell me what's wrong. I won't be able to help, but I'll listen."
Yeah,
Right. You can kvetch to me, and I'll sit here and take it.
He had psychiatric treatment.
Yeah, that's right.
The King Shlomo School of Psychiatry. Anyway, so he says, "Okay, what troubles you?" The woman answered, "That woman said to me," some woman over there, "Give me your son and we will eat him today. And tomorrow we'll eat my son." Right? We're starving. They're dying of starvation. But that woman said, "Let's start with yours." So we cooked my son and we ate him. The next day I said to her, give up your son and let's eat him. But she hid her son. When the king heard what the woman said, he rent his clothes. And as he walked along the wall, the people could see that he was wearing sackcloth underneath.
What does that mean? He rent his clothes?
Tore open.
Or-
So like you would take at the seam here, like you've seen in media,
Yeah.
and literally take and rip. Because again, their clothes as tunics would usually have a notch, so that from where they cut the anyway.
Was
So
sackcloth like burlap then?
yeah, it's the lowest quality of thing that they would make clothes out of at the time, is where we get from. Sackcloth is, it could be burlap. It's whatever the lowest, whatever they
Like
used.
a gunny sack.
Yeah, whatever they used for the cheapest
Sure.
material to make literally like sacks out of, to make whatever you'd need. But like it would be strong, usually as strong as they could make, but also as cheap as they could make. And you could cut holes in it and literally wear it if you wanted to, right? I mean, if it was big enough, you could put it over yourself to clothe yourself. If you turned it upside down and wore it like a tunic, like a
trash bag, and you make holes in it.
right, yes, like a trash bag essentially today, but they didn't have plastic, so
Well, 3 holes. You got to get the head.
right, yeah, a head hole and then 2 armholes, but yes, basically the same thing.
In the New Testament, the curtain was rent in the temple when Christ died.
What?
They
Oh, the
used to
curtain was
rent.
okay, yeah. He just it broke him to hear this. Again, he doesn't have a solution for her, and this is what he's heard is such a horrible, evil thing that he's moved to rend his clothes. But now everyone could see, and everyone could see he looks like a mourner seeing this, walking along the ramparts. It's a very despondent image, right? It's a very The king said on an oath, Ko ya'aseli Elohim, v'cho Yosif im ya'amod, Rosh Elisha ben Shaphat alav hayom. The king said, thus and more may God do to me if the head of Elisha, son of Shaphat, remains on his shoulders today.
Always blaming Alicia for the.
Yeah.
He blamed Elisha not for himself even so much, but for the people's suffering. Because the people had not saved them. And so I guess the prophet was saying you deserve, usually when a prophet, we'll see this much more later as we get to the more Jeremiah, as we get to the later prophets who only have really bad things to say, essentially, they'll say, you deserve what's coming to you, what's coming to you. So here, clearly the implication is that Elisha has kind of said the people deserve this war and what's happening to them. And the suffering is so great that the king cannot see how that could possibly be true, that the people could deserve this kind of suffering. And so he curses Elisha and says, I should kill him. God should want him dead for the suffering of God's people. This is a real important tension that the king of Israel, we're not getting his name here. I also think there's a little bit of, if this is the same king that called him Elisha Avi before, there might be some resentment that finally Israel has a devoted, a king that cares about the people, a king that cares about the prophet and God. And in that moment where Israel finally has what we would call a good king, this happens. And he's like, what was the point? I turned and did all the good things. If he did, I'm just saying, if I turned and did even better things than any previous king of Israel had done, how is this the result? The destruction is almost of our kingdom, and the definitely the vassalization of our kingdom. It's that's terrible, and then it brings the real tension of dealing with the fact that sometimes bad things happen, even when the people you might not think that they deserve it. And we say that today when there is no prophet in Israel. How much more so would they have said it when there was a guy they thought could, we can't today say, oh, prophet, why can't you just make Iran go kaput? Because there is no prophet. But at a time when there was, they're like, why is this happening to us?
Don't the ultra-Orthodox arrogate to themselves that role in Israel?
In a way, yes.
Collectively.
Yes, you're right. In some ways they do. They say that there's for the merit, because of the merit of their study of Torah, God protects Israel and allows it to triumph over its enemies. They contend that they do support the Israeli military by their continued study of Torah. I would argue that Rashi was able to be a vintner and the greatest Torah commentator in the history of the world. They can probably serve 3 years in the military and then go study Torah for 70 years. Maybe after they already studied Torah for 18 years. Not quite. 15 years, 14 years.
But they want nothing to do with it, or even all.
Well, yes, because they don't truly believe that the state is legitimate.
Right,
because again, right, until the Messiah comes and Jewish sovereignty is restored by divine decree, they're not so sure that there should be Jewish. Some of them are not so sure. Like our friends in Chabad don't believe this. They're I wouldn't necessarily say Zionist is a word to describe them, but they're not anti the state of Israel. Specifically, not here anyway. In Israel, Chabad's a little, everyone's a little different in Israel. But in any event, there are Haredi factions that, they put up Palestinian flags and they want to see the state of Israel. Yeah, they spray paint them on things and they put up graffiti that says Mavet la Tzahal, death to the IDF, and they say that they'll die before they enlist, and it's they're anti-statist. They believe that Jews can live in the land of Israel, but Jews shouldn't have sovereignty there until God sends us the Messiah. Jews, obviously, after millennia of getting persecuted and killed, were not willing to wait any longer for sovereignty, at least political sovereignty, to be restored to the people of Israel, and that's what we did in 1948. We will wait for religious sovereignty in that way until the coming of the Mashiach. And plenty of religious Zionists who are even Haredi, they're called Hardal, which is like the religious Zionist Haredim. And they serve in the military, and they are Haredi, and they believe that the state of Israel is legitimate. So
Harval?
Hardal. Yeah. It's an acronym for Haredi Dati Leumi. Dati Leumi means national religious, or we would call them like Smotrich's party, the religious Zionist party, mostly the faction of Jews who live in Judea and Samaria.
Since the military is a large part of being Jewish, I mean, that's the thing that's universal for.
Well, it's an assimilator for sure.
Exactly, and if they are not only not assimilating but wearing anti-Israel placards, I can think of what would have happened in World War II if they'd said Hitler is great, to hell with the United States. They would have been in jail in a minute.
Yeah, we used to not be so happy when people. Well, to be fair, in World War II, we didn't take any chances with dissenters, right?
That's right.
Sorry, I wasn't alive then, but I know about the Japanese internment camps everywhere. So I mean, I'm just saying, in World War II, we weren't really taking a lot of chances with dissent. We obviously have different rules today by how we, we started a war with Iran. We didn't put a bunch of people in camp. We didn't arrest every Iranian American. Though, hey, there are some. Maybe we should.
A large concentration of Japanese was within a couple of miles of my house as a kid. And my parents would take us by there and say, this is a crime, but they couldn't say it very loud.
No, yeah. What could you do? Right?
Governor Warren and President Roosevelt were for them.
Oh, yeah, of course. It wouldn't have happened without them. Anyway, we got a couple of verses left in this chapter.
Rationalization for that, I think, is somewhat of self-protective for them to,
Well, we didn't do it to the Germans.
Yeah, we didn't take German Americans and put them in camps. And to be fair, in the Midwest, there were a lot more German Americans than Japanese Americans.
One mistake were colored, and second, they owned a lot of land. They never got the land back after the war.
Huh.
Yeah, on the West Coast, the U.S. government took a bunch of land from a bunch of different people. Yeah, a lot of land.
And
now it still belongs to the U.S. in most cases. I think it's the government.
All its liberality was utterly horrible to the Native Americans, to the Chinese, to a lot of people. Now they've reformed a tad. That's fine.
Yes, now you can't walk around outside. Anyway, I left California. I can say that.
Well, I lived there. I haven't been back since.
There you go. Probably best. Anyway, okay, so we got just a couple verses left here. So thus and more may God do to me if I don't kill him. Now Elisha was sitting at home, and the elders were sitting with him. The king had sent one of his men ahead, but before that messenger arrived, Elisha said to the elders, "Do you see? That murderer has sent someone to cut off my head." Whoever Ahab's son is the king. Watch when the messenger comes, and shut the door and hold the door fast against him. No doubt the sound of his master's footsteps will follow. Right? You guys are a bunch of people. You can hold the door shut against him, in other words. While he was still talking to them, the messenger came to him and said, "This calamity is from God. What more can I hope for from God?" Right. We're not actually sure at this moment whether it was Elisha or the king or a messenger who said it. Probably the messenger, but right. There is a note here that the prophet was suffering from the famine like the rest of the people around him, and he had no tidings for them other than to direct them to follow the proper path and wait. Right. So he's essentially saying, look, I haven't heard it. Like, it's one of these things where he goes to the prophet. It's what we're essentially getting here is the source material for Don McLean's American Pie. Right? They went to the source, and the levee was dry. Right? He goes to him and he says, "Where's the food?" And the guy's like, "You see any food? Do I have any food?" Right? He's like, "I don't know what's happening. God made this decision. I didn't make the decision. God makes decisions. All I can tell you is to do the right thing and keep waiting for God to send deliverance in some manner." And when we pick up next time, we'll talk. Obviously, the conversation continues in the next chapter, and we talk a little more about the Odyssey. I want to thank everyone who attended online for joining.